This episode is brought to you by Huggies Little Snuggler. Huggies is the only leading brand with all-around blowout protection for sizes 1 and 2. All my parents out there know that there is nothing worse than a blowout. Within days of switching to Huggies Little Snugglers, I noticed my anxiety around diaper changes decrease exponentially. Just last weekend, I was mid-sip on my coffee when next to me my sister gasped. Boom, diaper blowout everywhere. Luckily, I had a stack of Huggies Little Snugglers on me, soft and pillowy, a tiny cloud of salvation. A few minutes later, my nephew was fresh, and hours later, no more blowouts. Crisis averted. You shouldn't have to live your life worrying about how you'll deal with the next inevitable blowout. Ease your blowout anxiety by switching to Huggies Little Snugglers. Huggies Little Snugglers are up to 100% leak-proof with blowout protection in the front and back on sizes 1 and 2, so you can feel confident relying on them for your little ones. Huggies Little Snugglers, now with blowout protection in every direction, sizes 1 and 2. Huggies, we got you, baby.
Hola, it's Rachel from Wait Que, your Spanglish podcast de confianza. When we started this podcast, I had no idea how much work went into it. Recording, editing, designing logos, managing socials. Each day brought a new challenge. Starting something from scratch is exciting, pero it can also be very overwhelming. That's why I wish I had something like Shopify back then. Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world, and it's also perfect for anyone getting started. Build your online store with Shopify's professional templates and let their AI tools help write descriptions, polish photos, and generate headlines. Shopify's got your back with inventory, shipping, returns, and all the not-so-glamorous parts of running a business. If you're ready to sell, you're ready for Shopify. Turn your big business idea into with Shopify on your site. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/sonoro. Go to shopify.com/sonoro for more information.
Sonoro presents A Murder in Montecito, a new murder mystery podcast about a best-selling author who must solve a crime off the page.
Murdered! She was definitely murdered!
Deanna must uncover the killer amongst them, but when the killer catches on,
I have to stop you.
how will Deanna write her way out of this one? Sonoro presents A Murder in Montecito. A Murder in Montecito is available wherever you listen to podcasts.
Something could be heard in the distance in the wind. I was looking toward that ravine barely visible through the fog toward La Rumorosa, thinking about what I could see down there, hidden by the night. In all the legends they had told me, in everything that could be real. Very good evening, community. Thank you for joining us once again for a new dose of horror stories, paranormal tales, and today very especially legends that become much more real than they seem. Pay close attention to today's stories, which are very special, and I would like you to listen to them with particular detail. Because above all, today they are an invitation. You'll understand why before we begin. To you, especially to you, who needs to hear it. You are not alone. You are part of this community, and everything will be fine. It's time to close your eyes and let yourself go. You are entering the world of tales of the night. This just happened to me. Just yesterday, I arrived home in the mid-afternoon, just as it was starting to get dark. It's a small apartment with a study where my husband works and a bedroom. Always, as soon as I arrive and open the door, my little cats greet me. One of them approached me. I started talking to her as I usually do, asking her how her day had been. And then out loud I said, "I'm home." My husband, as always from the computer in his study, responded, "Hello." I told him from the living room that I had just stopped by. I changed from heels to comfortable shoes, that I was going to the supermarket and still had some things to do outside. And he just laughed at me very quietly. I approached his study to greet him and saw that he had the light off. I went in and realized he wasn't there. I found it very strange and called to him again. "Did you go to sleep in bed?" Thinking that maybe I had heard wrong and out of habit had assumed he had responded from there. I thought maybe he was taking a nap or playing PlayStation in the bedroom, and he wasn't there either. I stood still, hearing nothing more, realizing that I was alone with the cats in the house, trying to process that I had just heard something from someone who wasn't there. I took the phone out of my bag to call him and saw that I had a message from him. "I'm going out to the store. Do you want anything?" The message was from several minutes ago. He had left before I arrived, but I swear to you, I swear I heard his voice perfectly, even with that tone so characteristic of his that he uses to greet me. And it wasn't once, but twice, because I'm sure I heard him laugh. It's not the first thing that has happened to me in this house, but it is the first manifestation, to call it somehow, of this type. So clear, so perceptible. It's also the first one that has happened to me while being completely awake, and even before night falls.
This episode is brought to you by Huggies Little Snuggler. Huggies is the only leading brand with all-around blowout protection for sizes 1 and 2. All my parents out there know that there is nothing worse than a blowout. Within days of switching to Huggies Little Snugglers, I noticed my anxiety around diaper changes decrease exponentially. Just last weekend, I was mid-sip on my coffee when next to me my sister gasped. Boom, diaper blowout everywhere. Luckily, I had a stack of Huggies Little Snugglers on me, soft and pillowy, a tiny cloud of salvation. A few minutes later, my nephew was fresh, and hours later, no more blowouts. Crisis averted. You shouldn't have to live your life worrying about how you'll deal with the next inevitable blowout. Ease your blowout anxiety by switching to Huggies Little Snugglers. Huggies Little Snugglers are up to 100% leak-proof with blowout protection in the front and back on sizes 1 and 2, so you can feel confident relying on them for your little ones. Huggies Little Snugglers, now with blowout protection in every direction, sizes 1 and 2. Huggies, we got you, baby.
Hola, it's Rachel from Wait Que, your Spanglish podcast de confianza. When we started this podcast, I had no idea how much work went into it. Recording, editing, designing logos, managing socials. Each day brought a new challenge. Starting something from scratch is exciting, pero it can also be very overwhelming. That's why I wish I had something like Shopify back then. Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world, and it's also perfect for anyone getting started. Build your online store with Shopify's professional templates, and let their AI tools help write descriptions, polish photos, and generate headlines. Shopify's got your back with inventory, shipping, returns, and all the not-so-glamorous parts of running a business. If you're ready to sell, you're ready for Shopify. Turn your big business idea into with Shopify on your site. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/sonoro. Go to shopify.com/sonoro for more information.
Hello. I'm very pleased to greet the entire community, and this time tell you my story. I don't know if you're going to publish it. It's, how to say it, based on a quite old legend, but one that has remained alive among people who still tell it. I haven't seen it told on the internet yet, but I know there are many people who will recognize it. To the people of Tecate especially, I'll ask, have you ever heard of the Witch of the Stones in La Rumorosa? I know that some people right now must be saying, yes, finally we're going to talk about her. It's not something that's only told in my family, and I know that. But I also know that many other people who are from this area must be completely blank or thinking about the other legends that are told about La Rumorosa, and that shouldn't be confused. And it's that this highway that runs between ravines and rocks, full of extremely dangerous curves, where even these days fatal accidents are reported much more frequently than on any other highway in the country. It's the perfect setting for legends of all kinds. Right here, on Tales of the Night, I've heard several. Some I had already heard and others I discovered, like the people who seem to enter a time loop and spend hours on this stretch of highway and only realize it when they reach the desert, and for them only minutes had passed. or the story of the woman who gets in with truckers who stop to rest. So many and many variations of the ghost of the curve, or people who ask for help on the side of the road saying they just had an accident, so that when you get out you discover there's no recent accident, and that's just talking about paranormal legends. There are so many and many reports of UFO sightings in the upper area, or of strange creatures near the campsites. That's more into the mountains and maybe not so close to the highway, but still in the same place. It is without a doubt a place very charged with energy. And that, yes, any person who has passed through there, which is a good percentage of Baja Californians, can corroborate. But this is another legend, and to start telling it, I have to go back to my childhood a little more than 30 years ago. My family is scattered throughout the state. I have uncles in Tijuana, my grandparents in Ensenada, my mother's family in Mexicali, and my parents, my siblings, and my uncle Abraham. We were always in Tecate. My uncle Abraham. Since I was a child, I remember he lived with us. He's my father's younger brother. When my father got married and went to live with my mother in Tecate, Abraham went with him. At that time, he was 15 years old. By the time I was born, he was already 18. So, although I don't remember, he was the one who took care of me the most when I was a baby. When my sister was born, 4 years later, my uncle Abraham started traveling a lot for his work. His room was always in the house, although it became increasingly rare for him to be in Tecate to use it. Since then, he traveled all the highways in the country. I loved it when he arrived with gifts for my sister and me. And above all, with many stories. I liked legends and ghost stories. The tales he brought us were of all kinds of adventures he experienced on the highways, of places that seemed completely magical and distant to us, as if they were another country, another world. People from outside maybe don't imagine how big Mexico is, how distant it can seem to a child in Baja California when they talk to him about Yucatan, Oaxaca, or Chiapas. It's another world that we got to know thanks to what he told us. To give you an idea, the distance between Tijuana and Mérida, Yucatan, at the corners of the country is the same as between Yucatan and Brazil. Mexico is an enormous country, truly. So we were fascinated listening to Uncle Abraham's stories. I remember we were at a birthday party for one of my cousins in Mexicali. That party was extremely important for the whole family because she had had cancer. She managed to beat it, and that was her first birthday after having that terrible disease. We were all very happy, so the whole family attended that celebration. And Uncle Abraham arrived as a surprise. We hadn't seen him for months. My sister Angie and I were the ones who were happiest to see him, as always. I was 9 years old at that moment. It was getting late. My uncle was coming from a very long trip. When he realized that the plan for almost the whole family was to stay and sleep there in Mexicali and leave until morning, he knew there would be a lack of space. He doesn't drink, so around 10 o'clock at night, he told them the best thing would be to go to Tecate. It was only an hour and a half on the highway, and driving in the early morning didn't bother him. I told my parents that I would go with my Uncle Abraham. My cousins were already tired, and it was more of an adults' party. I preferred the highway, and arriving to sleep in my bed, rather than crowded with everyone else. My parents asked my sister, and she also said she would go with us. So at 10:30, we were leaving the Mexicali Valley. Around 11, we were crossing that part called Laguna Salada, a dry lagoon that is actually a desert that crosses a straight line that becomes eternal before reaching the mountains, before starting to climb toward La Rumorosa. From the moment we left, I noticed I was getting the urge to go to the bathroom, and by that point, I was holding it so much that I wasn't even paying attention to what my uncle was telling me. And finally I said, "Sorry, Uncle. I can't hold the urge to pee anymore." I was scared because my father always scolded me, always told me to go before leaving for the highway, but my uncle didn't scold me. I could say that what I saw in him was an expression of concern. Okay. "Do you think you can hold it until we get to the toll booth?" he asked me. I told him no, that I couldn't hold it anymore. He told me we were about to reach a rest stop, that I could go there among the stones. For those who don't know, let me repeat. La Rumorosa is a highway between ravines and gorges that climbs along the edge of the mountains. Only 2 lanes fit. So the highway going down to Mexicali and the one going up to Tecate are completely separated. At different heights of the mountain. That's why when you're on that highway, since there are so many curves with no space next to the lanes, you can't stop until you find some rest area. Small dirt areas, some with enough space for several vehicles to stop to contemplate the landscape. Others much smaller, barely capable of sheltering one vehicle in trouble. In all of them, there are pools with water. And it's that many cars tend to overheat when going up the mountain. We arrived at one of these rest stops and I got out running. And there, next to the highway, I was finally able to go. I remember it was very, very cold. That cold that burns, that you only feel in La Rumorosa. My uncle also got out of the car, lit a cigarette, and went to the other side of the rest area. From there you could already see the lights of Mexicali. The whole city looked very distant. And there, under one of those many lights in the distance, all my family was still gathered. Surely still at the party. You could only hear the wind, a calm wind that night. Maybe that's why I managed to hear something. A kind of woman's scream in the distance. I ran up to my uncle, despite the fact that the smell of cigarettes disgusted me a lot. I asked him if he had heard that. "If you heard it too," he responded. And he started looking toward both sides of the highway. "Oh, mother. Don't tell me we ended up here. Precisely here," he said, but apparently not to me. While he was looking down toward the ravine, we ended up precisely in this damn rest stop. What luck. I asked him what he was referring to. He looked at me as if studying me, as if asking himself if I was ready to hear what he was going to tell me. "Do witches scare you?" I shook my head no. "Well, but you know they exist, right?" No, I was laughing. I didn't really know what he was referring to witches. Like the lady who lived on my street, who made weird teas, and whom my mother sometimes visited so she could give her bracelets for envy and the evil eye. To those like the lady who took away my stomach ache with a massage, or to witches like those in stories, those in movies. To those truly evil witches, he told me. "I'm asking you because there's a witch down there in the ravine. She got trapped among the stones. I don't know how it happened. Some say daylight caught her. A trucker I knew, the first one who showed her to me, told me that surely someone found her legs, and it's told that they take them off to turn into animals and do their evil deeds. My trucker friend told me that someone had hidden them from her, and that's why she stayed there, trapped forever. But all that isn't known. It's just imagined. The only certain thing is that she's down there." With more nerves than anything else, with a lot of curiosity, and convinced that my uncle was testing me, I told him I wasn't scared, that I wanted to see her. The good thing about knowing they exist is that one knows evil is real, and that way one also realizes that God exists, that only He can protect us from what's in this world, from what's there, in the ravine. I myself, my son, didn't believe in anything until I saw her. If you want, we can get a little closer to her, but just a little. Not much so she won't see us, but so you can see her from a distance. Do you dare? I told him yes, still not being able to believe that something like that could be true. My little sister was still sleeping. My uncle locked the car and told me to follow him very carefully, and started going down among the stones with difficulty. There was no way to walk. You had to jump between them. That was the second time I heard it. It was very clear that there was someone down there, and my uncle stopped. I told him to tell me the truth, if he was joking, and he just leaned on a stone. He signaled me not to make any noise and pointed to my right, downward. I positioned myself on the same stone as him. It was very dark, community. but I know what I saw down there. There was a woman in black. She was moving one arm, like robotically, like those they use in movies that move strangely. When I paid more attention, when my eyes were able to adapt a bit to see better, I saw that it looked like she was drying up, like a body beginning decomposition. She turned toward us. I'm sure she turned toward us, and there I got up and went running as I could, jumping. But I reached a stone I couldn't climb. I couldn't reach it. I was crying from fear, really desperate. And then I felt my uncle lifting me by my feet, pushing me so I could continue climbing. I reached the car, already out of breath. I could barely breathe. It was too cold. No, I couldn't believe what I had just seen. Even being a child, I refused to believe it. That couldn't be. A witch. They don't exist, I thought. My mother says they don't exist, that they're stories. My uncle came up and looked at me with concern. I think he regretted having shown me that when he saw me so scared. We got in the car. He took off a bracelet he always wore with several colored stones and a deer's eye, which is a seed used in many amulets in Mexico, and a small cross. He asked for my forgiveness, but told me that evil was real and was near, and that there was no other place where I could see it so closely with the security that it was trapped, that the bracelet would take care of me, and he gave it to me. In the morning, I was still so scared that I got up very late. I couldn't even eat breakfast. They woke me up, in fact, with my mother's screams scolding my uncle after he told them he had shown me the Witch of the Stones. I still remember that as part of a nightmare. My mother was really scolding my Uncle Abraham because he had shown me the witch. She told him I was still too young, that I was going to live in fear, that it wouldn't help me at all. My mother then spent that whole afternoon trying to convince me that it was just a legend, that the scream you hear are effects of the wind, that what I had seen down there were just branches that became a witch before people's eyes, only because of suggestion, because of the desire to believe. But the strange thing is that she let me keep the bracelet my uncle gave me, and when I went out without it, she reminded me to take it. Over time, I learned that people say that when you see a witch, perception becomes stronger, that from then on one becomes very sensitive to everything paranormal, and I didn't get to see many things. I suppose I've been lucky to live in places where there's nothing supernatural to note. The first times I passed through La Rumorosa after that were with an extremely deep fear that didn't even let me breathe. But over time I got used to it. But it's very strange indeed to cross that highway knowing how much can be hidden there, because I know that if that exists, the Witch of the Stones, many more things can avoid a place like that. With that energy, with so many deaths. And that's something anyone who passes through there can see in broad daylight. You can look from below, in any ravine. In all of them, you'll be able to see remains of cars, trucks, buses down there, in the deepest part. I'm literal when I tell you it's a place that puts you very much in contact with death, with a tragic, sudden, violent death. The next thing I have to share with you is something that happened recently, just a couple of years ago. I'm still living in Tecate. I still go constantly to visit my family, especially since my parents are no longer here. Taking the highway is common, although I don't like traveling much at night or in bad conditions. One weekend I went to visit my grandparents in Ensenada. I was going with my wife and her sister. She's in high school, but spends much of her time with us. I feel that when we have children, she'll be what my Uncle Abraham was to me. On the way back home, we first went to Mexicali to drop off an aunt. The plan was to have dinner there with her, but then we saw that it was threatening to snow in La Rumorosa. We hurried to manage to pass before the snow arrived. It makes it look very beautiful, but it's even more dangerous, and that's why they usually close the passage for hours. So it was time to hurry up. But I wasn't driving my car. To travel more comfortably on the highway, we took my wife's Liberty, an old but reliable truck, almost always. On that occasion, due to the urgency, I had to push it more than I usually do. It couldn't handle us forcing it that way. And in the middle of the La Rumorosa climb, it started to overheat despite the cold weather. Or maybe that's what made it endure a little more. The thing is, I had to slow down on the climb and started looking for a rest area to let it cool down and check the water, the radiator. I think I even smiled when I saw that next rest area, where I had to stop. I hadn't stopped there for many, many years. We checked the radiator, which had thrown out all the water. We filled it and decided to wait a bit for it to cool down so we could continue. Once we reached the end of the climb, we could advance at a moderate speed to Tecate without so much problem, making a couple more stops. I didn't want to say anything. I didn't want to make anyone suggestible by telling them where we were. But suddenly my sister-in-law, who was very close to the ravine taking photos of the landscape, ran up to me and said, "Did you hear that?" "Hear what?" I responded. She pulled us toward the edge of the ravine and told us to pay attention. "Do you hear the wind? How it sounds? How scary. It sounds like a horror movie," said my sister-in-law. I had told my wife that story several times, about the time I saw the witch. She looked at me. It hit her in the head, like understanding what was happening, connecting the dots. And then she simply said, "Don't tell me it's here." I went down to a stone at the beginning of the ravine's slope and pointed downward, toward the point where she should be, still trapped behind a big stone with a dry branch. It looked exactly the same as when I was a child. Not even the landslides that sometimes happen had changed anything. I heard my wife telling her sister that there was a legend that said a witch was trapped among the stones, condemned to be there for all eternity without being able to die. That only at night could she be heard. And the strange thing is that it was still getting dark. I also heard my sister-in-law making fun of my wife, telling her how she could believe in something like that she understood it from me, but from her. And you know, the funny thing is that my sister-in-law believes in ghosts, but for some reason, the idea of a witch seems ridiculous to her. It was then that we heard something, a lament very close, almost as if something was climbing toward us. Without saying anything, we all ran up to the truck. I closed the hood and started it, completely forgetting about letting the engine cool down. I, community, even so many years later, still wear the same protection bracelet. My sister-in-law shared what happened with some friends. She told me that although no one dared to go down, several have already gone to see, and a group of her friends found the place and they did hear her. Even one of them recorded her. I'm going to share with you the exact location of this rest area. For anyone who wants to verify that the legend is real, you decide whether to share it or not. Uriel, I know you often prefer not to give locations, but come on, there aren't that many rest areas on the La Rumorosa climb. Anyone who wants to verify that the Witch of the Stones exists, that she's still there, just has to stop a bit at each of the rest areas, and where they hear her, if they want, if they dare, they can go down. I share the same opinion that Uncle Abraham expressed, wherever he is. Sometimes seeing evil face to face isn't something negative. It gives you perspective. It makes you see that we're not alone, that there's something beyond our comprehension. Because if evil exists, good also exists, and that's inevitable. Although in my case, that yes, I don't want to see her again, even though I was a child, even though so much time has passed. Once was enough.
This episode is brought to you by Huggies Little Snuggler. Huggies is the only leading brand with all-around blowout protection for sizes 1 and 2. All my parents out there know that there is nothing worse than a blowout. Within days of switching to Huggies Little Snugglers, I noticed my anxiety around diaper changes decrease exponentially. Just last weekend, I was mid-sip on my coffee when next to me my sister gasped. Boom, diaper blowout everywhere. Luckily, I had a stack of Huggies Little Snugglers on me, soft and pillowy, a tiny cloud of salvation. A few minutes later, my nephew was fresh, and hours later, no more blowouts. Crisis averted. You shouldn't have to live your life worrying about how you'll deal with the next inevitable blowout. Ease your blowout anxiety by switching to Huggies Little Snugglers. Huggies Little Snugglers are up to 100% leak-proof with blowout protection in the front and back on sizes 1 and 2. so you can feel confident relying on them for your little ones. Huggies Little Snugglers, now with blowout protection in every direction, sizes 1 and 2. Huggies, we got you, baby.
Hola, it's Rachel from Wait Que, your Spanglish podcast de confianza. When we started this podcast, I had no idea how much work went into it. Recording, editing, designing logos, managing socials. Each day brought a new challenge. Starting something from scratch is exciting, pero it can also be very overwhelming. That's why I wish I had something like Shopify back then. Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world, and it's also perfect for anyone getting started. Build your online store with Shopify's professional templates and let their AI tools help write descriptions, polish photos, and generate headlines. Shopify's got your back with inventory, shipping, returns, and all the not-so-glamorous parts of running a business. If you're ready to sell, you're ready for Shopify. Turn your big business idea into with Shopify on your site. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/sonoro. Go to shopify.com/sonoro for more information.
Community. I hope you liked the previous story, and it leads us to make a very important call. We all know the most representative legends of our communities, of our city, but there are many that maybe aren't so popular and that are much closer to us. Some that we can verify are true, like this one. Some of which we know someone who could be a witness, so we're going to look for them. We're going to start with Mexico, which is where we have the most people, but we don't have to stop there if it's a topic you like. That's why I'm inviting the entire community to tell us a really terrifying legend from their state. New or not, a current urban legend, or maybe a colonial legend that they simply feel they've been close to. We're going to travel through all of Mexico state by state, through their legends. What do you say? So, we are going to invite everyone, but urgently those from Aguascalientes, Baja Sur, Campeche, Chiapas, Chihuahua, Mexico City, and Coahuila. For a first episode of Legends, tell us if you have one to share. For now, it's time to continue. I remind you to subscribe, leave us 5 stars, or thumbs up. Thank you for listening. My name is Dana Acosta. I want to tell you my story and know what you think. I live in an apartment on the 3rd floor, and I have a little cat for a year now. About 2 months ago, she had an accident. She fell from the back part of the apartment. She never goes out. She's always inside the house. We realized she was no longer there, and we went out to look for her. We spent long hours looking for her throughout the subdivision, through the hills, where you can't imagine. House by house asking, and we couldn't find her. Very angry and sad in front of my husband, I said, "You please, bring me back Lulu. Put her in front of my eyes so I can find her, and I'll give you $200. That was all I had at that moment. I said it like a game, thinking of my mother who told us stories about how if you said that phrase, the devil would help you find your lost things and stuff like that. And so it was left. Hours passed. Dawn came. Around 12 in the afternoon. I looked at the time. I still couldn't sleep. I came out of the kitchen and looked for something to eat. When I heard them knocking on the apartment door, very slowly, without hurry, I assumed it was someone at the neighbor's house. But no, really, it was my door. Someone was knocking, but I didn't look out until they stopped knocking. And what a surprise. Outside was my cat. She was sitting in front of the door. She just meowed, and I felt like I came back to life. I took her. I started checking her, and she had nothing. Nothing. But deep down, it gave me chills. They knocked on my door like a person. It was already daytime. No neighbor talks to us, much less to deliver our cat to us. I told my husband, and he told me, Well, he fulfilled what you asked him, but never do it again. I'm not religious, community, nor do I believe in him. But I'd like to know if anyone else has gone through something similar. Thank you for listening to me. A hug from Culiacán, and have a very good night.
This episode is brought to you by Huggies Little Snuggler. Huggies is the only leading brand with all-around blowout protection for sizes 1 and 2. All my parents out there know that there is nothing worse than a blowout. Within days of switching to Huggies Little Snugglers, I noticed my anxiety around diaper changes decrease exponentially. Just last weekend, I was mid-sip on my coffee when next to me my sister gasped. Boom, diaper blowout everywhere. Luckily, I had a stack of Huggies Little Snugglers on me, soft and pillowy, a tiny cloud of salvation. A few minutes later, my nephew was fresh, and hours later, no more blowouts. Crisis averted. You shouldn't have to live your life worrying about how you'll deal with the next inevitable blowout. Ease your blowout anxiety by switching to Huggies Little Snugglers. Huggies Little Snugglers are up to 100% leak-proof with blowout protection in the front and back on sizes 1 and 2, so you can feel confident relying on them for your little ones. Huggies Little Snugglers, now with blowout protection in every direction, sizes 1 and 2. Huggies, we got you, baby.
Hola, it's Rachel from Wait Que, your Spanglish podcast de confianza. When we started this podcast, I had no idea how much work went into it. Recording, editing, designing logos, managing socials. Each day brought a new challenge. Starting something from scratch is exciting, pero it can also be very overwhelming. That's why I wish I had something like Shopify back then. Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world, and it's also perfect for anyone getting started. Build your online store with Shopify's professional templates, and let their AI tools help write descriptions, polish photos, and generate headlines. Shopify's got your back with inventory, shipping, returns, and all the not-so-glamorous parts of running a business. If you're ready to sell, you're ready for Shopify. Turn your big business idea into with Shopify on your site. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/sonoro. Go to shopify.com/sonoro for more information.
Sonoro presents A Murder in Montecito, a new murder mystery podcast about a best-selling author who must solve a crime off the page.
Murdered! She was definitely murdered!
Deanna must uncover the killer amongst them, but when the killer catches on,
Perhaps not you.
how will Deanna write her way out of this one? Sonoro presents A Murder in Montecito. A Murder in Montecito is available wherever you listen to podcasts.